Hey everybody! I weaned my toddler, my oldest, at 3.5 years old, and today I want to talk with you about that process and share with you how it went and the strategies that I used to do it, and also my thought process behind why I did it and why I waited so long, in hopes that if you might be kind of struggling with a little bit in that area, like when do I wean and how do I do this? My kiddo is a little older, that hopefully this might be helpful for you. My oldest daughter was 3.5 years old, about a few months shy of 3.5 years old, around the time I decided to wean her. It had been something that I was thinking about for a while, for a while, but it just never really felt like the right time. Either she didn't feel ready or I didn't feel ready, and I think we kind of flip-flopped back and forth with that about being ready to do that. But what the kicker was for us is it was October of her 3rd year, and my husband and I had been talking about having another baby, and I knew just from the past pregnancy that I didn't want to try to sustain the nursing relationship that I had with my oldest and be pregnant at the same time, because pregnancy is a delicate time. And so I had started to kind of think about what that would look like as far as weaning and what would be the gentlest way possible to do that. My very wise mother told me early on in the nursing relationship because I had talked to her about it, I was thinking, how long do I nurse for? And, as a childless, before I had children, I looked at nursing and I thought, okay, well, a baby, when they get to be a year old, that's not a baby anymore. And when they're 2 years old, that's a kid, that's not a baby anymore. Well, having had 2 children at the age of 2, I can tell you that the 2-year-old is still a baby, because I have a 2-year-old in a few months, and she is very much still a baby, in my opinion anyway. Maybe not when I hold her up to a newborn, but she's still, to me, very young and very much a baby. So I was talking to my mom about, how do I wean and when do I do this? And she gave me a really great piece of advice that I actually used with my first daughter and will also with my second daughter. And that is, when they get old enough to understand and indicate, ask them this question. And that is, when do you like to nurse the most? Or when is it most special for you to nurse the most? Is it in the morning when you wake up and we snuggle? Or is it at nighttime before I put you to bed? And I remember when she told me that, my oldest was still fairly young, and I thought, she's never going to be able to tell me that. She's a baby. But eventually we got to the point where I was able to ask her that question, and she was able to tell me in not so many words that it was the morning time that was most special for her, and that she liked to nurse the most in the morning. And of course, there were definitely not that many words. She was still pretty young, but it was probably around the time she was about 2.5 or so, 2.5, that we started doing that. I said, okay. I said, well, Daddy's going to put you down at night, and I'll come in and give you a kiss, and then we'll nurse in the morning. And it took a little bit, probably a few nights for her to be like, oh, wait, yeah, I did say that. And wait, but no, but Mommy. We got into a really good pattern in where she understood that she would just come in and nurse in the morning. And so when she woke up, when her green light went on, she would come running in and snuggle and nurse. And so that took a lot of the pressure off, at least in my mind, because I had reached a point where I was like, okay, I'm getting kind of done with this. But I knew she wasn't ready to be done. So anyway, that helped sustain the nursing relationship a little bit longer. And then when we got to the point when we decided that we would have another baby was when I realized, okay, we're going to need to wean. I am going to tell you the next process, which was how we did it. But before I do that, I want to actually share a few things that you might want to consider about weaning and about that process, and maybe some reasons you might want to delay weaning. And the first of those would be if your kiddo is sick or not feeling well or teething, that's probably not the right time. So you might want to push back the weaning at any age, whatever age it is. That's a kind of setting yourself up for failure, in my opinion, just because that's a comfort, that's antibodies, that's all kinds of good stuff that's helping them. So not the best time to wean if baby's not feeling well or baby is sick. The next reason why you might want to consider delaying weaning would be if your family is kind of in upheaval, or if there's a major change. And that could look like you've moved, or they are in childcare, or you've had to go back to work, or something big in their life has happened. That would be another reason why you might want to wait, just because they're looking for that security and that stability that comes with the nursing relationship. So that would be another good time to wait. And the last reason why you might want to consider waiting is if you have attempted the process and your baby's just like, nope, not happening, and they're struggling with it, and it's becoming really hard for both you and the baby. That would be a good indication that maybe you want to wait a couple weeks and try again, because who knows, especially if your baby is young enough and they're not verbal, who knows what's happening in their life. Maybe they are popping a tooth and you just don't know, or maybe, who knows, maybe it's a wonder week and something's happening, or there's a growth spurt, and it's whatever you're doing, it's just not working. Maybe step back and give it a couple weeks and try again. Okay, so now let's talk about the how. I will share with you my personal story with my oldest daughter. As a side note, I am still nursing my youngest, and she is 2 years and a few months, and haven't really considered when I will end that relationship, or if she will end it first. I don't know. I'm not really there yet. I'm not really thinking about it, but I did go through it with my older one, so I'll share with you what we did in that situation. As I mentioned, my husband and I were talking about potentially having another baby, and I didn't want to be pregnant and nursing at the same time, but I also loved that relationship that I had with my daughter, the snuggle time and just the closeness that it provided. So I wanted to make sure to do it in a way that felt okay to me and that was respectful to her little heart, because it was it's like a security blanket, and I didn't want to just be like, rip, trash, done. That's not very nice. So it just so happened I had been reading and kind of looking around at weaning and weaning your toddler. And by the way, weaning is a very personal decision. So if you are not the mom, you can respectfully offer opinions, but in the famous words of a little tiny YouTube star, you worry about yourself. So if your wife is kind of trying to decide, or your partner's trying to decide about weaning, be supportive, because just be supportive. Anyway, back to the topic. We decided that the best thing for me would be to somehow try to remove myself from the situation, which was the mornings. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to get up and go to the gym at 4 a.m.? Well, that's not going to work. Well, it just so happened that one of my best friends was having a baby shower in a different town, and I talked to my husband about going, and the trip coincided perfectly, and he was like, yeah, let's do this, So I was going to be gone for, I think, 2 nights, and it would be two nights. And so I talked to my oldest, and I told her I was going to go and spend some time with, this particular friend, and that there was going to be a baby coming, and kind of explained to her that I was going to this baby shower, and enjoyed my last morning snuggle with my daughter, and went off on my very first solo trip without my family. Felt a little weird. And I stayed the night with my friend. I stayed 2 nights, and I was a little curious about what would happen if I was going to experience any discomfort. However, after 3.5 years, your body knows exactly what's going on, and there's not a whole lot of milk, and so it wasn't anything that I needed, like, an ice pack and some cabbage leaves for, or anything, thankfully, and it didn't, I wasn't leaking or having issues, fortunately. But it was a little bittersweet knowing that was coming to an end. I got home after being gone for a few days, and before the morning came, I explained to my little one, my little 3.5-year-old, that I had been at a baby shower, and that there was a baby there, and that she was a brand new little baby, and she needed mama's nurse, and that I gave her my milk so she would have milk as a little baby. And so my daughter was like, oh, so sweet, mommy. She thought that was great, until I explained to her that meant that I didn't have any more, that it was all gone, that I had given it to the baby. And then she was concerned that I had given these to the baby. And I assured her that they were still there. It was just that there was no more milk, that I had given that milk to the mama for that new baby. And so it took a couple days where she would kind of fuss a little bit, and she would ask, and I would remind her that, there was a brand new little baby, and I showed her pictures of, I don't even know if it was really that little, I think I just found a baby and showed her pictures of a brand new baby, and reminded her that she had given the milk to that baby, and that told her that she was very generous and that it was very kind of her, and just kind of, and I know that made her happy. I think she was a little sad that she didn't get to have the nurse anymore, but I also made it a big deal that she had done something very selfless and very generous. And those are big words for a 3.5-year-old, but I know that a little patting on the back and telling her she had done a really sweet thing made her feel good. So it took a while for her to stop asking completely, and then once she stopped, we were done. But then I had the new baby, and she saw her nursing, and there was all kinds of questions again as well, but that's neither here nor there. Now, for you mamas who are watching this who may have an older toddler that you are nursing, I want to encourage you and to remind you that it's okay. And for all the judgy Judies out there, just ignore them. This relationship is between you and your child, and it's a complicated thing. It's not just as easy as, okay, day one, we're all done. There's a lot more to it than that. And the other thing that I think is interesting that I want to put out there is my grandfather is 92 years old, and so that means he was born in the 20s, and he wasn't weaned until he was 4 years old. And that's not him walking away, that was him being weaned by his mother. And from what I understand, that's actually fairly common. So it's just been within the last, 80-ish years that it's changed so drastically. I know that the American Academy of Pediatrics says that try to do at least 6 months, because those are the vital 6 months, and then longer if you choose to. But it wasn't so long ago that it was going on quite a bit longer than 6 months. Now, things have changed. Mamas have to go back to work, and family dynamics look a lot different than they did 80 years ago. However, if you choose to nurse and breastfeed your toddler until they get a little bit older, it's all right. Don't feel bad. It's a relationship between the two of you. One last little bit of advice from me would be to make it a process rather than on this day we're going to stop, because it will reduce, I feel like, at least in my relationship with my oldest, I feel like it reduced the anxiety in me and in her quite a bit by making it a gradual paring down of how much we're nursing, and then having like a trip or having something set up where it can be a nice ending rather than just this is the day we're quitting. So I feel like that will work a lot better. It worked great for us. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this helpful, I would be honored if you would consider to share it. If you liked it, please click like. And if you have any thoughts on weaning, or if you have any stories that you want to share or any encouragement you want to share, I would encourage you and love it if you would leave it in the comments below. I love being able to interact with people who watch the videos. It's probably the highlight of my day. If you are not a subscriber, I'd like to invite you to be one. That way you will get notifications when we put out new videos, which is every week. We have topics all over the family scale, just kind of whatever's happening in our life at the time. Lots of stuff about babies, families, kiddos. So thanks so much for your time and for watching. Hope you guys are doing great. Check us out on Facebook, by the way. If you haven't already, we're on there. We'd love to interact with you in that way too. So hope you guys are doing well, and we'll see you again next week.